Hi John, how
Hi,
are you?
JP. Yeah, doing great. How
Oh,
are you?
I'm just so glad it's finally getting warm. So feeling pretty good.
Yeah, great, great. So, yeah, what's going on in your LSAT world these days?
Um, I would say it's been interesting. It's been some very like high level students and some very like beginner students. So it's been like a wider gap than I think I'm normally used to. So mm,
Yeah, it's definitely this time of year. Um, it seems to be people who are like in the final moments of getting things together, or they are preparing for applying in the fall. So you get a lot
yeah,
of like either at the end of the line or at the very beginning of
yeah,
their studies types of things. So, um, yeah, it's interesting. This application cycle has been pretty busy. I don't know if you've heard the stats on this, but
yeah,
applicants are up 20% uh, since last year. So a lot of people are interested right now in going to law school and pursuing a
yeah. It
legal
does seem a
career.
little cyclical because um, I think during like '09, economy's not doing too good. And it's like, oh, like more people in grad school. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I guess with all the uncertainty that we're in now, and we can kind of see it, like the rumblings of it earlier on. So um, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
uh, like a tougher cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense though, too. If you're graduating college and you're like, all right, do I go on and get an advanced degree or do I go straight into the workforce? How strong of
Yeah,
a workforce you're entering and how certain
yeah,
of a workforce you're entering certainly can play a
yeah.
role in that math. Um, but yeah, I guess have you heard any motivations from students as to why they're pursuing law schools? Have you seen anything change there in particular, or is it pretty similar to what you've seen in the
I mean, I
past?
think during periods of like economic uncertainty, like we're in now, um, you see a lot of people just like we said, thinking about grad school and or this is something that they were maybe thinking about for the future, and they're like, I think I'll get some experience first, but seeing how the job market's a little bit rough and uncertainty of like government jobs and tariffs, and there's just all this crazy stuff happening, right? So then some people have been, I guess, leaning into to grad
Yep.
school. But as for motivations, yeah.
And I have
Oh,
seen
what
a
were you gonna
lot
say?
of I have seen a lot of that as well. Yeah, people who have been in the workforce and they're like, you know what? I wanted to go to law school at some point. I decided not to, but now
Yeah,
seems like a good time
yeah,
to double back
yeah.
and maybe get that done.
It's funny because I think in listening to podcasts or talking to like old professors, etc., or other people who are considering grad school during this time, it's like it seems like grad school is kind of like a safe haven, right? It's like, oh, everything's so tumultuous outside. Let me like upskill, or
Yeah,
and it's a little bit, it kind
yeah,
of leans you towards one side, and like making that decision.
for sure. And I think
Yeah,
opportunity costs play into it a lot as well, right? If you were planning on coming straight out of college and getting a great job, six-figure job, the opportunity cost for going to law
yeah,
school is a little bit higher, right? You're going to have to forego that salary for 3 years. You're going to
yeah,
take on debt potentially for those 3 years, but then, you know, in the long run, it ends up being uh, a smart choice. If that math turns into like, oh, I can't really get a
yeah,
good job after college, and I'm just going to wait this out, and by the time I'm done with law school, the economy is going to be on an upswing, hopefully, and I'll be poised to get an even higher starting salary than I would have otherwise.
yeah.
It
And I
definitely
think a
makes
lot
sense.
of what helps people in this decision making is kind of like gauging what everyone else is talking about, or seeing what people are seeing what the general atmosphere is. So I think like even in the fall we could see that like the applications were up, and you just hear people talking about um oh, like getting internships is like much harder than it used to be, or everyone there's like trends like, oh, everyone wants to be comp sci. It's like, oh, like comp sci is not looking too good, or like tech is like, oh, a lot of downsizing. So, yeah, it's like just following the sentiment.
Yep, and for sure, like I took the LSAT in 2009 and started teaching the LSAT then. So I got to watch like this huge increase in people coming into law school in 09 and 2010. I think even into 2011. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but so you had this like progressively building of people going to law school, and then after 4 to 5 years of that, there was all these articles on like this glut of lawyers entering into the job market, and there's no jobs for lawyers. And so then it shrunk. And then people are like, oh, well, we need more lawyers because there's not a lot of lawyers out there. People aren't applying. And then all that grow. So it is this cyclical thing that you do see that tends to run in the opposite direction of the general economy, or at least the sentiment of the general.
And it's interesting because it seems like that pattern exists in other places too, right? Say, like late 90s, like comp sci, like .com bubble, like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do with this comp sci degree? I'm, wait a little bit later, comp sci. So, I think recognizing that things are cyclical helps, or should help, put people a little bit at ease, right? So it's like, it's just, it goes one way and then it'll just go back to the norm.
Yeah. And look, applicants are up 20%, but if you're competitive, you're competitive. You'll still have a successful application cycle. 20% is a lot in a year, but I don't even know what the numbers were leading into this, if the numbers were high coming into this year or if they were abnormally low. Sometimes you get things that like, oh, there was this abnormal dip, and then now, it's up maybe 4% from 2 years ago, but it's 20% from the year prior. Like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but I wouldn't be too scared if you're thinking about applying to law school and you see that it's more competitive. Just be more competitive with it. Put in a little bit extra time on things, and all you have to make it 20% better than you are otherwise going to do, and you'll certainly be in a really.
I definitely agree. Position. I think the landscape's a little tougher, but if you're very strong, then you'll be very strong regardless. And I think it's important to realize that there are like little things that you can do to kind of stand out, right? So like, and talking to some people now, it's like, oh, getting waitlisted left and right, yada yada. But you can keep in touch and update schools, or just like continue to show interest, or maybe they're hosting a webinar, and then you're like a constant face. You're not just like another like floaty application. So, these like soft touch points, I think, are like not that hard to do, but like can help you stand out. So there's little things that can be done.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't even know if it's, I'm sure part of it is conscious, but just part of it is just the way we're wired, right? If you see a faceless name, that's hard for you to connect with. If you're like, oh, that's JP. He was at I talked to him for 5 minutes at the event that we had, and he called in a couple weeks ago, and he sent me this really nice letter about how he's still interested, and like, oh, you may start to view it in a more favorable light, and just think of like, all right, well, we want to fill this class with people who are engaged and people who are cool and people who we like. And I know him, I met him, he's cool, I like him. You probably want the class.
I think it's a lot of it is like yield, right? So it's, if you show that you're interested, that you will, there is a great chance that you will take that seat. Then it's like, oh,
Correct.
I have like these several applicants that like look very, very similar, but this one's been reaching out, or like I actually know, like I've talked to this person on the phone or through emails, or there's schools are always like, they have like little like lectures, or like there's all these like little things that you can just hop in and be a little less anonymous, right? It's like you're putting a face and like a person to the application.
Yeah. And I would say, looking forward to next cycle, you should be considering doing 20% more than you thought you were going to do. Think of it that way. Like, how can I make my application 20% better than I was otherwise going to do, which means maybe you need to, have 20% more
Yeah.
time on your LSAT prep and 20% more time on your applications and doing things that other people aren't doing. Like you said, showing up is one thing that most other applicants aren't doing. That's something that you can do. Pretty low barrier to entry. You just show up. It just takes some of your time, and you probably will learn some stuff that is going to be beneficial to you. So you're gaining and you're putting yourself in a better position. So that's obviously really good. But if you were thinking I'm going to spend 4 months on the LSAT, maybe that's 5 months. Or if you're going to spend 5 months, maybe it's 6 months, and just giving yourself a little more
Yeah, that's
runway.
exactly what I was thinking too. Where you know, obviously everyone's in such different buckets, but say you're like this year, you're already in the cycle, or you're looking at next year. A lot of people undergrad, they're like, I'm gonna like take the summer, and but you know, there are trends that there are more applicants, and maybe increase the time that you spend, or say you're going to start your start thinking about like essays, and like maybe start thinking about like personal statements, or these yeah, it's a lot of what we talk about is and planning timelines, and being strategic. So um you can definitely um situate yourself quite well for the upcoming cycle.
Yeah, and letters of recommendation. That's something that actually takes quite a bit of time to, um, from start to finish. You need to develop a
Yeah.
relationship with a professor and who knows you and knows what you're capable of, and you need to bring your absolute A+ game to that class
Yeah.
and to their office hours and to that relationship. Or if it's if there's research involved or whatever, like you really need to bring your absolute top game, because that's going to be the person who tells the rest of the world, whether it's for law school, grad school, job applications. You're going to want someone in your corner that's going to be say, hey, this
Yeah.
person's astounding, this person's great, and be really emphatic about who you are as a person, your work ethic, your intellect, your ability to adjust, and your adaptability, all these different things, your leadership skills. You want to bring all of that to the table in front of this person over the course of at least a semester, but hopefully you'll have a longer
Yeah. And
relationship than that.
again, some of these things just take planning, right? It's like, oh, like maybe you don't have uh there isn't someone that comes to mind. It's like, oh, like maybe there's a relationship that you can cultivate, where it's like, this is a class that you're particularly interested in, or um you know like you said, visiting office hours. Yeah, just starting to think about these things early, because that stuff also does take time, right? Like you gotta consider, you know maybe they're on vacation, or you have to accommodate other people's schedules. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's all these little, like,
Right.
maybe it does seem a little overwhelming at first, but there are a bunch of little things that you can um tend to, that do put you in a better spot.
Yeah, and I used to do like a very no cost thing, and this wasn't just to get letters of rec, but this was just to develop better relationships with instructors, and just kind of get to know what their expectations are for the class, and what they, what kind of work that they appreciate, and things like that. I would just stay after
Yeah.
class for like 3 minutes and just go up to the professor at the end of the class and say, hey, this was really like something that I really enjoyed in the class. Like, hey, this was really interesting. Or like, here's the assignments coming up.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions about it. Like whatever,
Yeah.
just engaging with them and just being like a constant um, presence in the class, and
Yeah.
participating in class, raising your hand, getting involved, showing leadership qualities in class. That you don't have to take any extra time. You just have to
Yeah.
bring a little
I
bit
think
more
that's
effort.
a really good point too, because I know, at least for myself, I thought like, oh man, all these people that get letters of rec for like grad school or for jobs, etc. It's like, they're like dining at the professor's house. They know the family, and I guess there are some people that like do have such a close relationship with their professors, but I think I didn't realize that very small things actually do go a long way, and especially if it's genuine, right? I'm thinking, I had some like modern
Yeah.
Chinese history courses I really, really enjoyed, and they were like in multiple parts. So I had this one professor from multiple trimesters. And, when there were parts that I found particularly interesting, like you said, 3 minutes after class, I just go and like, ask for like, hey, do you have any like book recommendations on this topic? Or like, oh, I'm actually kind of curious, like, how did this factor affect that? And, you can really see like their faces like light up, and they're so happy to talk, and see that there's people that are interested in, um, you know, in what they're teaching, or, within their domain. So I think from that, when I had to reach out to get letters of rec for like jobs and stuff like that, I was like kind of scared, like, oh, I just talked to them a couple times after class. They were so happy, like, oh, of course I remember you, like, oh, like, da, da, da. Like these small
Yeah.
things really, um, it may not seem like a lot, but it's actually quite valuable.
Yeah, and I like what you said, like a genuine interest, right? So this isn't like some cold,
Yeah.
calculated thing where you're trying to like, whatever it is. Here's the deal, right? They teach this class, which means they're
Yeah.
super interested in the subject matter, right? And they're an expert on it, ideally, right? Which means they're a wealth of knowledge on this particular subject matter. You signed up to take this class, which means you should be interested in the concept and you have an expert sitting in front of you who wants nothing more than to, for lack of a better word, mentor you or give their knowledge to the next generation of people coming up and spark that interest and things like that. Go
Yeah.
get the win-win-win. It's wins all around. They love it. That's why they became teachers and professors. They want to do this kind of thing. And it is very rewarding for them. And it's also very rewarding for you. You'll get a lot out of it. Even if you
Yeah.
don't ever get a letter of rec from them. Like I would
Yeah.
do this with all of my professors. And it just led to things that I never even thought would, happen. It just adds like a bit of randomness into the situation and gets you primed for lucky
I
things to
think that's
happen.
an excellent point, because I like especially what you said about even if it's not directed towards an end, right? So um, I think,
Yeah.
the grad school jobs, etc. Like we're almost like built to think like I need like ABC, so I will do like these several things like to get there. But some of these things that are just very
Yeah.
genuine, right? Very small, they could lead to like, oh, like I found out about a research opportunity, or like, oh, this professor has like a great working relationship with this person,
Yeah.
and then they referred me. So that concept that you said about,
Right.
we tend to think of luck as this thing that's very like floaty, and that we stumble upon, but there's a lot of ways that we can, just by virtue of how we act, we can find our own luck, right? Or put ourselves in positions to get more lucky. So I think that's a excellent point. And one
Yeah.
thing I'll say is, through this conversation, I think um, I'm just thinking of so many classes where, a lot of the class isn't engaged, and maybe it's not something that's like the most interesting thing
Yeah.
for you, but it's really so small effort. Like I remember I would like go for a jog, and I'd be like, oh, cool, like this professor did like a podcast. Like I'm very big on like geopolitics and international relations. So I was like, oh, cool. This like my Chinese history professor like
Okay.
was like guest starred in this like big podcast commenting on like China U.S. relations. But I just put it on while going jogging, and then I mentioned it
Oh
to her.
yeah.
She was so happy, But it's so small effort, that there
Sure.
or you find articles and stuff, and it's just very genuine, right? So like um and for other professors where like I didn't ask for a letter, or for like these little things like did lead to um me finding luck. So yeah, I think that's excellent advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And luck is a very interesting thing. It's not very well understood. I'm not sure anybody fully understands. But everybody knows someone who you think is really lucky, and everybody knows somebody who you think is
Yeah.
really unlucky. Um, and part of it is just putting yourself in the way of luck, like being, you know, getting more at bats. You're probably gonna hit more balls, right? And someone may say that that's lucky, but it's like, yeah, but I've been
Yeah.
swinging this bat a lot actually. So yeah, I got 10 hits, but like I
Yeah.
swang 100 times, right? Um, and you may be interested in some things that happen and nothing comes of it, but every once in a while, one of those seeds will sprout, and then all of a sudden you're getting an opportunity that maybe other people in the class aren't getting, and they're like, oh well, JP's so lucky, he's lucky the professor chose him. It's like, well, you were putting yourself in position for that luck to
Yeah.
find you.
I think through this discussion, I'm just, I'm really thinking about like the undergraduate experience, or, some like, within that age range. There's, or one thing I often heard, and, I also thought like this was, you have some people who are like, oh, I'm like pre-med, or I'm pre-law, pre-dental, and they confine themselves to like a very like set path, and they don't explore interests outside that, because they're like, oh, like I'm gonna be a dentist. Why should I like I am interested in economics, but like why would I even go outside my bubble? But I think one thing that's important is in this discussion of finding luck, by being open minded, by being genuine, you can find things that actually help you for the path that you're choosing, right? So like I remember there is this um, lawyer I thought was very, very cool. And she was working in venture capital and in crypto. And I was like, wow, like I wonder how she like stumbled upon this, but like, maybe like she got lucky or something. But then, I can see she had she was like engaged on like Twitter, and she would like write like there'd be like SEC versus like this like crypto exchange, and then she would like annotate, and she was like actively engaged in this space, so that even though it wasn't within her immediate
Yeah.
bubble, that was an interest, and then it ultimately led to like an opportunity that meshed her path with that interest. So I think um that's just huge, especially when you're an undergrad, right? And there's so many things. So I would say definitely don't um like let that bubble be a little bit um bigger, and it could lead to some lucky things.
Yeah. And it's also recognizing just the uncertainty
Yeah,
of action. You really don't know when you show up,
yeah,
when's the thing going to happen or anything going to happen. When are you going to
yeah,
meet your future spouse? Where's that going to be? Like, you just don't know. Um, and I almost missed my wife because I almost didn't show up. It was a friend's birthday party, and we met at the party. And I was adamant I did
too
not want to go to
tired.
this party.
Yeah,
And I was like, I'm staying in tonight. I'm not going. And he convinced me to go. And lucky me, I actually showed up. But if I hadn't showed up, that was about the only
yeah,
time we would have crossed paths. And we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So uh,
yeah,
you don't know where luck's going to strike. So you do have
yeah,
to just kind of show up. And I never thought that was going to be the result of what happened that night. There's just so much uncertainty in what opportunities are going to be presented, and some of them
yeah.
are once in a lifetime that you may miss
And
out on.
one thing I'll piggyback off, or I mean, first, congratulations. That's awesome. I actually I love to hear,
Hey, thanks.
how
Yeah.
people met, and all these like grocery store stories, or all these little small things. It's very funny. It's like very human, Um, but one thing
Yeah.
I'll say is,
Uh-huh.
um, like for those listening, regardless of what stage of life, etc., a lot of this, or like within this concept, it sounds like you have to do so much, but it's exactly like you said. You just put yourself out there, right? Say like you want to like be a content creator, like, oh, like, okay, like, put yourself out there, or you're like trying to explore a new hobby, but like, just show up. It's not, you don't have to perform well, but just show
Yeah.
up, right? So I think um yeah, it, through small things, big things can happen.
Absolutely. And even just taking that first step of
Yeah.
cracking the book for the LSAT. A lot of
Oh,
people
for sure.
delay that. Just get in there and show up, like get things moving. And you may be surprised that the fact that you showed up 2.5 months early may open a door that otherwise was going to be closed if you
Yeah,
procrastinated for 2.5 more months and before you cracked that first book and then got into the studying. Or you may have met somebody who was studying at that period of time, who's not studying later, or a study buddy like you had. You may not have crossed paths and supported each other through that process had you not, put yourself out there. And, again, like you just never know what's going to happen or where it's going to be. So you just got to get started on these things. And even the LSAT, there's still a bit of luck in it too, which test you take, are you sick? Is there technology issues that happen on the day of the test? But the more prepared you are and the more ready you are to eliminate some of the things that could go wrong, the better the chances are that you're putting yourself in luck's way, and that you're gonna have a nice lucky test day and come
Put
out
yourself
feeling
in
good.
luck's way through little things. Just keep showing up, and that that the ray will hit a little bit more.
Absolutely. All right, JP, I
Likewise.
appreciate it. Let's plan on chatting again next week, and
Yeah, stay
stay lucky,
lucky.
my friend.
See you.